Dennis was now a very misjudged engine. He was very lazy and tried many ways to get out of his work. But after an accident with Neville, Dennis felt very guilty indeed. Ever since then, he had offered to help anyone he finds. But due to how lazy he was, they wouldn't accept his offer. One morning, Sir Topham Hatt came to see him. Thomas and Rosie were taking coal to Hackenbeck, he announced. Unfortunately, Rosie's cylinders are broken, and Thomas can't pull the train alone. I need an engine to go and help them at once. Dennis was thrilled. He could be really useful at last. This might be my chance to show everyone I'm not as lazy as I used to be, he thought. Of course I'll help, sir, he cried. I'm happy to give a wheel to a friend. Sir Topham Hatt beamed, and his wheels wobbled as he set off to the rescue. Dennis was very excited. At last, he thought, I can be really useful at last. But when Dennis arrived, Thomas was not very happy to see him. I really thought Gordon was going to help us, he grumbled, or Henry, or Emily. Thomas, squeaked Rosie, be nice. I'm sure Dennis can be really useful. Tuh, sniffed Thomas, as if. Dennis simply carried on. Off we go, hooted Dennis, and he was off in a flash. At first, Thomas thought that Dennis would try to act as if he was sick again. But to his surprise, Dennis didn't either moan or groan. Even Rosie was surprised. The trucks decided to have some mischief, but when Dennis blasted his horn, the cars remained respectfully silent. Soon nothing went wrong, and they arrived at Hackenbeck Station, right on time. Everyone was very surprised to see them. Sniffed Bulgy. Not bad for railway hogs like you. Thank you very much, Dennis, squeaked Rosie. Without you, this coal would never have been delivered on time. Dennis smiled. He never had been congratulated before. Thomas stayed silent, though. He couldn't trust Dennis, even if he wanted to. Rosie's cylinders are broken, called Thomas's driver. And Thomas has nearly run out of water. Please, shun us to the nearest water tower, Dennis. Once again, Dennis was happy to help. As Rosie was having her cylinders mended, Thomas was soon full of water. Thank you very much, Dennis, said Rosie kindly. You're not so bad for a diesel who used to be lazy. Dennis looked down at his buffers. What's wrong with you? Huffed Thomas. That's just it, murmured Dennis. I think others are hurt because of my laziness. I just wanted to take the time off, but instead, other engines are hurt because of me. I didn't even realize that you were all trying to look out for me, and I wasted my chance to be a really useful engine and to be your friend. I'm so sorry. Rosie and Thomas looked at each other, but before they could say anything, the station master came running up. He looked very worried. The winter breeze is starting to cut off all the lights, he cried. There will be a power shortage. The engines gasped. What's a power shortage? Asked Dennis. That, said Thomas, is when there are no electricity in anything. station, house, or even telephone lines. "We must check it out," cried Rosie. And they did, as fast as they could. Dennis followed alongside. Soon enough, the breeze was blowing harder and harder until all the lights flickered off and on, until suddenly everything was black. The villagers were very scared. "What will we do without any lights?" cried a boy. There, son," comforted his dad. "It'll be all right." The engines were very worried. "What shall we do?" cried Rosie. "I don't know," replied Thomas. "There's nothing we can do. Besides, the wind's blowing harder." Dennis thought for a moment, and then an idea flew into his veins. "Wait a minute," he cried. "We could use my engine to power the town. That way, it'll get its power back." Thomas and Rosie were surprised. "What will happen to you?" cried Thomas. "It's too dangerous," added Rosie. "Dangerous or not, I'm willing to give it a try," grunted Dennis, and he raced back to the station. Butch was already there talking to the station master when Dennis oiled up. "Sir, Butch," he called, and he explained his plan. Butch looked serious. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "I'm willing to do anything to help these villagers." The station master was a little worried, but agreed. Soon Butch attached his tow cable to Dennis's buffer. Butch strained and heaved, but at last Dennis was hoisted from the rails and onto the road. Butch strained as he began to tow Dennis near the power cord. Dennis winced and Butch strained, but at last they made it at last. Soon workmen scrambled and connected the cord to his generator, and when the generator was started, roared with all his might. The engines watched, and so did the villagers. But at last, the lights were beginning to glow again, and soon the power came on again. "It worked!" cried a workman, and they removed the cord from Dennis's generator. Dennis felt exhausted but triumphant. Soon everyone clapped and cheered for Dennis. "Hooray! Hooray! Well done, Dennis, well done!" And even Thomas couldn't help but agree. "Well done indeed, Dennis." Dennis only blushed. Over the next few days, Thomas and Rosie were back at work. They had just arrived at the works when Thomas gasped. "Well, bust my buffers," he cried. "Who is that?" exclaimed Rosie. There, in the siding, was a brightly orange diesel engine. It looked exactly like Dennis, but he was painted orange, was missing his number, and he had a large unibrow. "Hello, Thomas. Hello, Rosie," he called. "Dennis? Is that really you?" asked Thomas. "It's Norman now," explained Dennis. "It's Norman now," explained Dennis. "Since when did you get a new paint job?" asked Rosie. "This wasn't Sir Topham Hatt's decision. I asked him to do it. He was so pleased at my hard work, and that he decided to reward me. I figure it's time I make a change of how I look, what my color would be, and to get a new engine in case I work very hard. Plus, I like the new me, and I like the new name, of course." "Well, It's great to have you working on our railway, Norman, smiled Thomas. Norman could only beam.